Stephen Kinnock.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask about this question of proximity. So your party, Mr. Gove, fought the general election on the basis of an oven-ready deal.
Yes.
And that oven-ready deal was as set out in the withdrawal agreement and the political declaration. But on the 27th of February, you came to the House and argued that proximity is not a determining factor in FTAs with neighbouring states. And yet, paragraph 77 of the political declaration states that given the Union and the United Kingdom's geographic proximity and economic interdependence, the future relationship must ensure open and fair competition encompassing robust commitments to ensure a level playing field. So can you explain the disparity between those two positions? On the one hand, signing up to a political declaration which puts proximity as the defining factor in the relationship, and then everything that's happened since the general election seems to be the government walking away from that commitment.
I don't think we've been walking away from the political declaration at all. The point about the political declaration is that it envisages a zero tariff, zero quota free trade agreement at the end of this process. What we've been seeking to do is to build on existing precedents that the EU acknowledges and understands, and saying that we want to have a relationship entirely similar to that which the EU has with other sovereign equals. And of course, it's a geographical fact that the UK is proximate, but that does not mean and need not mean that we accept EU institutions exercising a supervisory role in Great Britain. And that's the distinction that we were seeking to draw.
But why then did you sign up in the political declaration to robust commitments to ensuring a level playing field because of proximity? I mean, that is fundamental to the whole argument about a level playing field and the need to have alignment in order to get zero tariffs and zero quotas.
Again, I think there are two things. The volume of trade that the UK does with the EU is broadly similar to the volume of trade that the US does with the EU, and yet the EU were perfectly prepared during the TTIP negotiations to offer a zero tariff arrangement to the US, even though, of course, there was no geographical proximity there. So, we take the view that we can look at the totality of commitments which the EU has entered into, and when it comes to issues of workers' rights, social protection, and the environment, which are often the issues which people refer to when they use the phrase level playing field, the Prime Minister has been clear, and I've been clear, that not only will we not row back on protections in any of those areas, we hope, and we already, I believe, are setting the pace when it comes to areas of environmental protection, and therefore the EU can feel reassured, if it is concerned about these areas, that there won't be any attempt on our part to erode environmental protections in a way that they might consider would give us a temporary competitive advantage.
But the premise was that we'll get zero tariff and zero quota deal, and yet the political declaration is saying that without those level playing fields, particularly around state aid and competition, we won't get it. I mean, do you not think it's a problem that this was sold in the general election as oven ready, but in fact it was at the back of the frozen food section?
No, I think it is the case that you can often have frozen foods which are indeed oven ready. They just take slightly longer for the microwave to ping. But the critical point, I think, is that the political declaration makes the point that both sides want to achieve that zero tariff, zero quota deal, but also more broadly, one of the reasons why it should be possible with goodwill to conclude a deal is that the deal that we're putting forward, and this relates to the point that the Chairman made about publishing texts, the deal that we want to put forward is one that is built on precedents. So we want to say, in this respect, it's similar or completely analogous to the relationship that you have concluded with Canada or with Japan or with South Korea. So therefore, in that sense, rather than having to extend the metaphor, rather than having to assemble all the ingredients from scratch and try to cook all together, it's an already prepared set of dishes, rather like the Marks and Spencer's deal you get, where you get a starter, a main course, and a pudding, and then you can decide which of the three you want to get, but all for £9.99, and then you're away.
Sounds absolutely delicious, Mr. Gove. The thing I wanted to move on to was the Northern Ireland Protocol, and particularly the issue of state aid. So, as you'll know, under the Northern Ireland Protocol, the UK is, or Northern Ireland, I should say, is signed up to the full panoply of state aid laws and rules and regulations. So can you explain how that's going to impact on businesses that are, for example, trading out of England into Northern Ireland and then on to the European Union? All of those businesses are going to be subject to the full panoply of state aid regulations. Is that correct?
No, I don't believe so. And I think that the subsidy regime that the UK proposes to put in place after we've left the EU will be one that I think that the EU will recognise as a robust system. More than that, I think it's also important, as I mentioned briefly earlier to the chair, that the effective working of the protocol is a matter for the joint committee to resolve, and I'm looking forward to that meeting in order to ensure that we can develop the protocol, implement it in all its provisions in a way that ensures that the people of Northern Ireland and the Northern Ireland economy benefit.